When I opened this YouTube channel, my main goal was to improve my speaking skills. And recently I went back and watched some of my first videos here, and it was really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if you have ever done that. Watch yourself from a year ago, and it's uncomfortable, but it's interesting because I notice a lot of things that I have never noticed before. So today I want to share the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the psychology behind some mistakes that I still make as a non-native speaker. Firstly, my English actually got better, like genuinely better. The interesting part is that I didn't memorize more words, I didn't study more grammar. So when I compare my first videos to now, the difference is huge. I notice I can find words faster. I also sound more natural. At least that's what I think. Let me know in the comments if you noticed the same. And all of that came from showing up and making videos. So if you are struggling with your speaking skills in English, maybe YouTube is your answer. You know, making videos, sharing what you learned from a book you read, sharing your ideas. Every time you show up and you speak, your English will get better. So it's really worth trying. I didn't regret from creating this YouTube channel and making videos here. I've noticed the channel, it's growing, and there's more people interested in learning more about this experiment, let's say. So let me know in the comments if you have ever thought about making videos to improve your English, because I need to know I am not the only one who believes this actually works. Secondly, I noticed my pronunciation issues. This is the part I want to be really honest about, because when I started to make videos in English, I didn't worry about making mistakes. Even though I was always worried about sharing my thoughts clearly in a way that people would at least understand what I was trying to say, I was not worried and focused on mistakes. And I always encourage people to not worry about making mistakes. But now that I don't have to fear speaking anymore, I feel it's time to get even better and work on my mistakes. So you shouldn't let mistakes paralyze you, but you also should work to improve. One of the things I notice is that I don't open my mouth enough when I speak. Like in Portuguese, we don't really need to open our mouth to speak. The sounds are different, but in English, especially American English, you really need to open your mouth. And because I'm not used to that, many times when I'm speaking, the sounds come out smaller than they should be. I know it happens to a lot of English learners because it's not about accent. It's about reprogramming physical habits that you spend your lifetime building, like the sounds that you make with your mouth when you were speaking. So I wanted to go deeper and understand why this is still a challenge for me. And I found some psychological and neurological explanations very interesting. For example, our brain already has a complete sound system for our native language. It automatically filters English sounds through that system. So our mouth tends to produce the closest sound to our native language instead of the corrected English one. Self-awareness. Most people have zero awareness of how their mouth moves when they speak. English forces us to develop a completely new body awareness, one you never needed in your native language. That's why seeing how you make sounds with your mouth, maybe watching yourself when you speak English, is important so you can develop this self-awareness. Another reason is the comfort zone of the body. Opening our mouth feels emotionally exposed, like taking up more space. When you already feel insecure in a language, your body naturally works to protect itself. In our native language, we are in comfort zone. But in our second language, we are out of this comfort zone. And all of the insecurities we feel, like speaking in public or just speaking out loud, they start to come up. There are a lot of psychological and neurological explanations behind these things. And this is nice to know because then we stop to think that we are the problem. We are not the problem. We are just non-native speakers learning the language. Knowing these things is helping me to work more on my concentration, for example, being more aware of my words, of the things I'm saying, paying more attention to the sounds I make with my mouth, and really trying to understand what are the insecurities that makes me feel nervous when I'm speaking. I also notice I tend to be more redundant in English. While in my native language I'm more direct, in English I feel I'm always going in circles. If you feel the same, here's the explanation. The access delay. In your native language, your brain retrieves words instantly. It's automatic. In English, there's a small but real delay while your brain searches for the right word. Those pauses get filled with extra words, repetition, or filler phrases to buy time without losing the conversation. Verbal padding as a safety net. Psychologically, silence feels dangerous in a second language. It signals "I don't know," which feels like exposure. So your brain instinctively fills the gap with redundant phrases to maintain the appearance of fluency while it catches up behind the scenes. Working memory overload. In your native language, grammar and vocabulary run on autopilot, freeing your brain to focus on ideas. In English, grammar and vocabulary consume mental energy, leaving less room for precise word choice. Redundancy is your brain's way of managing that overload. And finally, loss of rhetorical confidence. In your native language, you trust the words. In English, you're not always sure you choose the right words. So you say it again differently, using different words, different phrases, hoping the other person is going to understand. One of the things that I'm working on is thinking more in block of phrases. So native speakers don't build sentences word by word. They usually have memorized a lot of chunks. So when you have a library of chunks in your head, it's easier to speak because you don't have to be looking for words to put them together under a lot of pressure. So that's something I am working on. Every time I heard a phrase in English, I try to memorize the whole sentence instead of only words. I also discovered by watching my videos here that my head voice is very weak because my chest voice is always predominant. I've learned that there are many ways to practice a head voice. One of them is reading out loud with exaggeration. So what I have been doing is I start to read out loud with a lot of expressions and exaggeration so I can practice my head voice. This feels really uncomfortable, but I know that this also means that I am expanding beyond my comfort zone, which is always speaking in my chest voice. Something I also noticed after making thousands of videos here, my grammar mistakes. I started hearing them, catching them, so I went back to something that I haven't looked at in years, a personal grammar guide that I did when I was just starting to learn English. My husband helped me. At the time, he was an English teacher, and I was always complaining and not understanding English grammar, and I was trying to learn the English grammar from English schools, which didn't work. So he helped me, like, basically sharing the basic structures of English that I needed to speak, and that's how I started speaking. So I gathered all of these structures on this guide, and I added more things that I believe are important when you're learning a new language, like mindset, like working on your identity, on your environment. So I work on this guide. I made it really professional. You can get a copy of it. The link is in the description. And I am just reviewing against these grammar rules, because sometimes we start to speak, we lost the fear of speaking, but we forgot to keep working on our grammar, and it's important. That's it, my friends. I hope this video helped you to see the benefits of making videos in English to improve your speaking skills. I hope I have encouraged you to maybe start making some videos, even if they are private, so you can watch yourself, develop more self-awareness, notice your mistakes, and then improve them. Also, if you feel unmotivated to keep studying English, or if you feel it's really hard to be yourself in a second language, watch this video here and see you there.